Last year we saw the overdue return of a great director to cinema, Mr. David Cronenberg, with his film Crimes of the Future, which has just had this fantastic 4K release from Second Sight Films, which I'm going to talk more about this release in a bit. But why should you care about this film and the return of David Cronenberg? Well, it had been 8 years since his last film, which I have here, Maps to the Stars. But Crimes of the Future is very different to this film and the films he had been making before this one. This is a return to what some people would call body horror. Cronenberg basically helped invent the subgenre of body horror, which, as the name suggests, concerns itself with the human body and all of the things that go on within the body and that can happen to the body. By the way, before I get too into the video, I want to know, what is your favourite David Cronenberg film? Because he has quite a large filmography at this point, and there are so many great films that he has made. So what is your number one favourite? Please let me know in a comment below. But I see people asking and contemplating whether this film, Crimes of the Future, is a proper return to form for Cronenberg. Is he at the heights he was at when he made Videodrome or Dead Ringers or any of those great films that he made in the past? Before I attempt to answer that very difficult question, what is the film about? Well, this is a science fiction film of sorts. It's set in the future when humans have overcome pain. They no longer feel pain, and this has allowed people to experiment with the body. We follow these performance artists who use surgery as an entertainment. They perform surgery on themselves in front of an audience, and because they feel no pain, they're able to do this. And they're even able to take a form of pleasure out of surgery. I should point out that this will be a difficult film for some people to watch because it is concerning surgery in quite graphic detail, which, to be honest, is something that I don't particularly like watching anyway. And Cronenberg said before Cannes Film Festival last year that he was expecting people to faint and walk out of the cinema when they watched this film. Now, perhaps I had too high of an expectation of what that would actually mean, but when I watched the film on this disc for the first time, it didn't really affect me all that much. The way that the scenes are shot around these surgeries is not really to go for shock value, I think. Cronenberg is approaching this in a very philosophical manner. He's asking questions about the human body, about the future of human evolution, and in that regard, it isn't really scary. It isn't really horror. And I would argue that this film isn't really horrific at all. And I think that's why audiences have become quite divided on this film. Even the die-hard Cronenberg fans kind of don't really like this film because it isn't really a horror film. It's very much in the vein of his more philosophical movies that he's been making the past 10, 15 years. And this is not necessarily a knock on the filmmaking, but the surgery sequences, they use CGI, and it is quite noticeable that this isn't practical, because obviously it wouldn't be practical. It would be too hard to pull off those scenes just using practical effects. This film all came about because Cronenberg was interested in the fact that human beings now show traces of microplastics within the blood and within the body, and these are seemingly not having an effect on us right now. It's as if they're just existing in our bodies, and perhaps we are becoming one with these plastics in some sort of way. And that is something that Cronenberg is directly addressing in the film. So is this a return to form? Is this classic Cronenberg? I don't think so. I think Cronenberg has evolved as a filmmaker, and I don't think he's trying to go back to the films he was making in the 80s and the 90s. This is something different, and yes, it's concerning the body, and you might want to call it body horror because of the surgery sequences. But this is not that old Cronenberg. He has evolved as a filmmaker, and I think that is why people are becoming quite divided. It does have a great score from Howard Shore, who has collaborated with Cronenberg throughout his career. But another reason why this isn't really like Cronenberg's older films is that it's not made in Canada, and he pretty much made all of his films in his home country up to quite recently. This one is shot in Greece, and it's set in this kind of warm location. The cinematography is quite golden and warm in the daytimes. A lot of it is set indoors, so it's light filtering through blinds and windows, which does lend the film to having this kind of feeling that it's underground and it's the kind of thing you shouldn't be watching. I did have a good time with the film, and it has made me think about a lot of different things that the film was exploring. And at parts, it did make me very uncomfortable. So it's a film that I will definitely be revisiting in the future. I don't think it's a modern masterpiece at the moment, but that could all change. Now let's just have a quick look at the new 4K set from Second Sight Films. If you're not familiar with Second Sight Films, they are one of the best companies making boutique Blu-rays. The care and the attention that goes into their releases is almost unparalleled. They are definitely, top of the industry right now. And this release is just another hit in a string of great releases this year. As we've come to expect from them, it's in this fantastic hard box case, a nice rigid case, and inside you get a few different things. First of all, you get some art cards, which don't really do much for me, but maybe they do for you. There's a mix of the new artwork commissioned for the release and then just some stills from the film itself. You then get this quite comprehensive book, which is over 100 pages. There are 8 different essays in this book. Very nicely bound, as always, from Second Sight Films. And then, of course, you get the discs, which are housed inside here. You get a 4K disc with the film and the features, and then there's a Blu-ray copy as well. I believe that this film already had a 4K release before this from another company. I hadn't seen that disc, so I can't really compare the two. But the presentation on this disc is beautiful. The Dolby Vision grade is excellent, 4K resolution. No complaints with the picture or the sound from me. And with regards to the special features on the disc, there are some new features. There's a new audio commentary and some new interviews. And then there are some interviews with the actors and the director from Cannes Film Festival last year when the film was showing in competition. So if you're daring enough to give this film a go, I would definitely recommend watching it on the 4K disc, which you can get now. I'll include some purchasing links in the description, which if you want to use, it helps out the channel and no additional cost to you. If you've enjoyed this video talking about Crimes of the Future and the new 4K disc, then just click the video on screen right now where you can get more recommendations from me. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you soon.